Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to describe the position of objects using the cardinal points. The cardinal points are the four main directions shown by a compass. The compass shows four main directions: north, south, east, and west. North, south, east, and west. Okay, so we are going to use the cardinal points to describe the positions of the objects on this graph. Okay, now on the graph you have object M with coordinates positive 6 and 6, object L with coordinates positive 8 and positive 6, point J with coordinates 6, that's positive 6, and 4, positive 4, and K with coordinates 8 and 4. Okay, now let's look at the objects and try to describe their position. Look at object M. Now you can see that object M is to the west of object L, but to the north of J. Now let's look at K. K is to the east of J, but to the south of point L. Now let's look at point L. Point L is to the north of point K, but to the east of point M. And point J is to the south of point M, but to the west of point K. I hope you understand this, because in our past video we treated this topic, so we are using this as a reminder. Okay, now in maths we mark lines in a grid to locate their positions. We use the x and y axis. We are going to locate the coordinates of points on a graph. Now, as I said, we use the x and y axis. So on the graph on the scene, you can see y, the y axis there, the x axis there. Now on your right hand side, the numbers are positive for the x axis. On your left hand side, they are negative numbers, that is for the x axis. The y axis up there positive, then the south or down there negative numbers. Okay, now let's take a look at this graph. You can see that on your right hand side the x values are positive. That is, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They are all positive. Then on the left hand side they are negative numbers. You can see negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, and negative 6. Okay, now let's look at the y axis. You can see the positive numbers up. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now down there you can see their negative numbers: -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 and -6. Okay, now we are going to use this to locate the coordinates, or to write down the coordinates of the points on the graph. Now let's look at point A. Point A. Please note, we always write the x value first. Point A. Now you can trace point A to -5 for the x value. So it is -5 and then +2. That is, when you trace it, it comes to -5 for the x value and then +2 for the y value. So we write the coordinates of the point A is -5 and -2. Now let's look at point D. Point D. Point D, you can trace the coordinates to the x-axis. You will see 4, and then when you trace it to the y-axis, you are going to see 3. So the coordinates of the point D are 4 and 3. 4 and 3. Now let's look at C. C. If you trace the C to the x-axis, you are going to get +4. But if you trace it to the y-axis, you are going to get -4. So we say the point C is 4 and -4. Take time and look at the solution again and try to understand it. Okay, now let's move on. We are going to try to write down the coordinates of the points on this graph. Try it. Okay, now let's look at their coordinates. For R, point R, when you trace it to the x-axis, you are going to get +4. When you trace it to the y-axis, you are going to get +2. So the point R is 4 and 2. 4 and 2. Now let's come to the point P. The point P. The point P to the x-axis is -4 and to the y-axis is -3. So the point P is -4 and -3. Now the other point, if you trace it to the x-axis, you are getting -5, and then if you trace it to the y-axis, you are getting +2. So the coordinates of that point is -5 and +2 and +2. Okay, now you can see the coordinates. Yes, R is +4 and +2, P -4 and -3. Then the other point, you have -5 and 2. Okay, now I'm going to give you an assignment. Try and write down the coordinates of the points on this graph. Write down the coordinates of the points on this graph. You have point D, point G, point B, and point H. Try to write down the coordinates of these points. Thank you.